Sally sometimes has, she lives in the far north, not Alaska, but the far north part of California. And sometimes in that rural area, the Wi-Fi is not always as reliable as it should be. So I'm going to propose that we go on with our agenda, and when Sally can get fully connected, then we'll pull her in for that treasurer's report. I'm looking online and I see Andra Hoffman, who is part of our executive board. She's a member at large, and she had a great idea this last year, which is our new series, our educational series that just started. Gosh, it just started last week. Andra, would you give us an overview of that series?
Thank you, Nan. And I want to make sure that we give Chancellor Christian an opportunity to speak as well. So it wasn't just my idea, but we came together, me as the chair of the policy committee of this caucus and Dr. Christian as the chair of the programming committee, to bring a speaker series on parenting students. So for those of you who joined us last week, thank you so much. It was really an honor to have Sujin from California Competes give an overview on their 4 policy recommendations, along with a blog series that one of our members authored, Darcy Harvey. I don't know if Darcy, if you're here today, but I really want to give a lot of credit to Darcy for joining our policy committee, for joining the Women's Caucus, and for supporting us in this issue of trying to create more awareness and support around student parents. So we had a wonderful panel, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Christian to say a few words as well, if you'd like to.
You know, the topic of student parents was something that came to the Women's Caucus through the policy committee and Andra. And I know personally that although I had been engaged with issues that students who are parents, what they deal with, I don't think I've ever done a deep dive into the significant barriers that they face. So we have a 3-part series that has been planned. The first one, Andra and Nan talked about, which was on January 26th. Mark your calendars. The next one is going to be on March 8th, and all of them are at 4 p.m. and we'll drop it in the chat window. And the last one is going to be on April 12th. We're just kind of getting started this spring semester. The programming committee will meet with the policy committee to figure out what the focus would be for the second part and the third part of the series. In the meantime, there are a variety of other events that are being planned to showcase student parents or parenting students. And one of the areas was really the lack of data that we have to support policy changes down the line. So we're also emphasizing that as we are tracking information by various groups of students, that we need to intentionally gather that information so that we can generate reports and look at it to see what are the barriers that are not even visible to us because we haven't collected the data. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Andra, if you want to just wrap up the topic.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I appreciate it. Yeah, so this was a topic that we brought up in the policy committee as something that we wanted to address to make sure that we're providing enough support and getting enough information on who our student parents are. And I do understand, and Nan, maybe you can clarify that the Latino Caucus is looking at sponsoring legislation to collect information on Latino students. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could collaborate on that, if, you know, because we're seeking to sort of collect the same kind of data, maybe not the exact same kind of data, but we're seeking to support legislation to be able to collect data on student parents. Part of the problem is the FAFSA doesn't actually first of all, it doesn't encompass every student, and it doesn't accurately reflect the kind of data that we're looking for. And currently on CCC Apply, we're not collecting the data. So can you talk a little bit about, or are you open to finding ways to work together if we're talking about data collection in general?
Well, I believe that we would be. Let's see, that would be Dr. Francisco Rodriguez, who is someone you are familiar with since he's the chancellor, when you're a trustee. He really gave a compelling presentation yesterday at the Latino Caucus, along with Dr. Jose Fierro and Martha Garcia, about our doctors.
Alexa, mute television.
And what we're looking at is, we have the data that shows Latino students are not being successful. And so what do we need to do to provide that focus in order for us to develop strategies so that we can move with urgency on increasing the numbers of student success? So I think what we need to do is to get you together with our group, and then say, what are we looking at? Where are the overlaps? And of course, there's intersectionality too, right, within the groups.
Right. And then I would just ask this group here to, make sure that you know what your colleges are doing in support of student parents. At LA Valley College, we have a family resource center to support our student parents. I know that Dr. Endra Jonas is going to have a grand opening pretty soon of her family resource center. LA Southwest College is moving toward serving students through a family resource center. So if we can just maybe for this year, look at what are we doing statewide, what are we doing as a system to better support our students who have children in the home under the age of 18.
Thank you. And thank you to the policy committee and the program committee for coming together so that we're now educating ourselves. And it was a very powerful way to lead off the first series with people who have been engaged in this for 19 years at LA Valley, and then to hear from a student, how do you balance that, and when are the greatest challenges? And so it was a great way to lead off the year. Looking forward to the next one. Well, moving on in our agenda, our executive board.
It looks like you have a hand up. Somebody's hand is up.
Oh, I didn't see. I need to scroll. Yes, Debbie.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when we're talking about going back to our campuses, there's just so few of us. And so we're looking at 116 campuses that we need all of their, and we need the data from everybody. And I'm afraid that we're going to miss most of the students that we're trying to assist because there's so few of us. I'm wondering if we could address this question and request for information to each campus and to each maybe women's studies program to get us the information we're looking from their particular campus, which might give us a bigger resource of numbers to represent us. That we should be, I think we need to connect with the women's programs on each of our campuses and ask for assistance in getting this information about students. Otherwise, we're going to miss a lot of students if it's just a few of us going back to our campuses.
Go ahead.
Well, I think my ask was just to sort of make yourself aware of what you're actually doing on your campuses, if you can, in terms of supporting student parents. Many of our campuses have CalWorks programs, for instance, and CARE programs. And I think what we need to do, and Chancellor Christian put it perfectly, is take a deeper dive and a deeper look. I don't think we're at the point yet where we're ready to collect information from all of the 116 community colleges, but just to make yourselves aware as a first step. That was really just
yeah. And my reason for asking it is because we don't represent the large population of diversity that we're looking for in terms of response on this committee. I mean, so when the few of us go out, how many what's the number that's going out that's going to get the information about African Americans and Latinos? And I mean, we're not going to get it because I mean, it looks like the majority on the Women's Caucus is not diverse.
Well, I am seeing some diversity, but perhaps
Oh,
not
yeah,
exactly, not reflective of the numbers on our individual campuses. What I would like to add, because I'm in agreement that in order for this to be meaningful, we will need to look at a systematic way of collecting data, and whether that's piggybacking on some existing structures or developing some new ways of collecting data. That's where we need to be, but first we're going to go through our 3 series and become educated, and then in an ideal world, we'll have an action plan and implement that action plan so that we can see some results, because that's what we all want, right? It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually get something done. So keeping that in mind, become aware, and then tune in to our series, and then we'll look at how can we pinpoint what those next steps will be.